The silence of the summer morning was broken by the pale sunlight seeping into my room. The curtains swayed slightly as I stared at the ceiling. Today felt different. I could feel it in every inch of my body. The clinking of silverware echoed from downstairs, signaling that my dad, Bruce, was already having breakfast. On mornings when Caitlin ruled the kitchen, everything followed a strict routine. The steam rising from the kettle, the scent of toast crisping on the stove. Every little task timed down to the second. Caitlin was a perfectionist. She had to be in control. But control wasn't just about the kitchen. She controlled everything. In this house, as I got out of bed, I heard footsteps passing by in the hallway. Carl. A familiar tension twisted in my stomach. It had been 2 years since my dad and Caitlin got married, but getting used to Carl, that was a whole different thing. His presence had always felt foreign to me. The idea of sharing a house, living under the same roof, it still didn't feel real. Sometimes we'd cross paths in the kitchen. Sometimes our shoulders would brush as we passed each other on the stairs. But nothing felt the way it did this morning. I opened my door and stepped into the hallway. Carl was leaning against the doorframe of his room, watching me. He was still wearing the gray t-shirt from his morning workout, slightly damp with sweat. His dark hair was messy, and there was a faint tiredness in his eyes. But it wasn't his exhaustion that unsettled me. It was the way he was looking at me. That look wasn't casual. For a second, flashes from last night flickered through my mind. The tension, the stolen glances, the way the air felt thick between us. I forced myself to snap out of it, turning toward the stairs. But as I walked past him, his fingers brushed against the inside of my arm. I froze. That wasn't an accident. I held my breath. Arya, aren't you coming for breakfast? Caitlin's voice cut through the silence from the kitchen. I bit my lip. Carl smirked. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Today was different. And some lines once crossed could never be undone. That evening at dinner, my dad and Caitlin dropped an unexpected bomb. We're going away for the weekend, my dad said, setting his fork down. His eyes flickered toward Caitlin like they had already discussed this a dozen times. I gripped my glass a little tighter. We'd be alone in the house. Carl sat across from me, absently pushing his food around on his plate like he didn't care. But I knew better. Caitlin, always the one to set the rules, chimed in. Arya, I expect you to keep the house in order while we're gone. First thing in the morning, clean up. The kitchen cabinets need to be wiped down, and don't let things get messy. Of course. Even when she wasn't here, she still needed to be in control. But I wasn't thinking about cleaning. I was thinking about Carl, and how, for the first time, we'd have no one watching us. I smiled to myself. Of course. Caitlin wouldn't let go of control until the very last second. As dinner wrapped up and everyone started clearing the table, Carl brushed past me in the kitchen. His shoulder barely touched mine, but he didn't pull away. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. I took a slow, deep breath, and then his voice came, low, steady, and certain. I gave them the idea for the trip, Arya. My heart nearly stopped. Carl leaned against the doorway. His eyes locked onto mine. He had known. All along he had known how I felt, and he had been playing along, managing it, keeping things in check. But not anymore. We're not running anymore. Something inside me snapped. Heat, pressure, a tangled mess of emotions I couldn't unravel. Carl walked out of the kitchen, slow and sure, disappearing into the dim hallway. I didn't move. We're not running anymore. If you love confessions like these, make sure to join my channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're gonna want this story to never end. The next morning, I stood by the kitchen window, watching Bruce and Caitlin load their suitcases into the car. My dad turned one last time and waved. "We'll be back in a few days." Caitlin, always composed, gave me a sharp look. "Arya, don't forget the house." I wouldn't, but not in the way she thought. The door shut behind them, and just like that, we were alone. I threw on an old pair of shorts and a thin strapped tank top. I figured I'd do what Caitlin said, start cleaning. But my mind wasn't on the house. It was on Carl. I soaked a cloth in lavender-scented cleaner and started wiping down the coffee table. The fresh scent filled the air, but it did nothing to calm me. Then, a shift behind me, a presence. I knew before I even turned around. Carl. He stood in the doorway watching me. His gray sweatpants hung low on his hips, and his fitted tank top clung to his body. He looked like he had just finished working out. His skin glistened faintly with sweat, chest rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. My throat went dry. "You dropped something," he said. "What?" I frowned, looking down, and saw the cloth on the floor. I hadn't even realized I let it slip from my hand. Carl stepped closer. Too close. I wanted to back away, but my legs wouldn't move. The edge of the coffee table was against my thighs. I had nowhere to go. He bent down, picked up the cleaning cloth, but he didn't stand back up. His face was way too close to mine. "You're tense." His voice was soft, but there was something playful underneath. "I'm not," I said quickly, but my trembling hand gave me away. Carl's eyes flicked downward to where my tank top strap had slipped slightly off my shoulder. He didn't look away. "Arya." His voice was barely above a whisper, and just him saying my name was enough. That's when it hit me. I thought he didn't care, but I had it all wrong. I was the one running. The next morning, Carl left without a word. The door clicked shut behind him, and the house felt empty. I had no idea if he was coming back. He had moments like this where he'd just withdraw, shut everything out like the world didn't exist. But this time, something felt different. There was weight to his silence. I had no idea what to do. Hours passed, but I couldn't focus on anything. And then by late afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Carl, tonight I want to tell you something about my mom, Caitlin, and I want to experience a few things with you." I froze, staring at the screen. Experience a few things with me. What the hell did that mean? I tried to make sense of it. And suddenly, it all clicked. That's why he was always so distant. He had been holding something inside him this whole time. Something about his mother, something big. But the part about experiencing things with me, that was the mystery. Before I could dwell on it, my phone rang again. "Caitlin." I rolled my eyes and answered. "Arya, don't forget about dinner. Make sure there's food ready when Carl gets home." As always, her voice was sharp, full of commands. Fine, I'd make dinner, but not for her, for him, only for him. That evening, for the first time in a long time, I actually put effort into dinner. I made the things Carl liked. There was a weird mix of tension and excitement bubbling inside me. Just as I was setting the table, the front door opened. Carl stepped inside. He had a bottle of wine in his hand. His eyes locked onto mine. Slowly, he walked in, made his way to the table, and set the bottle down. Something was about to change. "Smells good," he said. The slight rasp in his voice sent chills down my spine. "And you brought wine," I said, trying to break the silence. "We have things to talk about tonight," he replied. We sat down at the table. Dinner had started, but the real conversation was just beginning. Carl swirled his glass, eyes fixed on the deep red of the wine for a moment. Then he looked straight at me. I'm the only one who knows this secret, he said. And I can't explain how exhausting that is, Arya. That's why I'm telling you. Because I care about you. My heart started pounding. Carl took a deep breath, held my gaze, and said it. Caitlin cheated on my dad. With Bruce. Time stopped. Carl continued. She did it for money. She sold my father, our family, our entire past for a price. And Bruce knew he knew everything and still married her. A shiver ran through my body. I never could have guessed this. That's why staying in this house has been torture for me, Carl said. His voice didn't shake, but the weight behind it was clear. I would have left, but I stayed because of you. Everything I thought I knew came crashing down. Is that why we weren't running anymore? Our eyes locked. The secrets were out. But tonight wasn't just about secrets. The words had been spoken, but neither of us moved. Between the empty wine glasses and half-finished plates, something hung in the air, not tension. A strange kind of relief. It was like there was nothing left to hide. At some point, without even realizing it, we ended up in the living room. The wine bottle sat on the coffee table, the dim lighting casting soft shadows on the walls. Carl leaned back into the couch, arms resting behind his head. His eyes still held that same intensity. I sat curled up, knees pulled to my chest, watching him without thinking. How long had we been like this? I didn't know. But for the first time, I noticed how natural it felt to be near him. Being alone with Carl, it was something else entirely. You know, Carl said, leaning in just slightly. I ignored your attention for a long time. I swallowed hard. What? Carl kept going, his voice soft but unwavering. Because I always thought one day I'd get fed up and just leave this house. I saw the way you looked at me, Arya. I knew what you felt, but I wasn't going to stay, so I didn't do anything. His eyes locked onto mine, but the day I realized I wasn't leaving, I made my move. That's why I planted the idea of the trip in my mom's head. A rush of heat spread through my body, knowing he had noticed me all along, completely unraveled me. Carl lifted his hand slowly, his thumb brushing against my cheek. The second his skin touched mine, I held my breath. I missed out on so much, he whispered. You're special, Arya. If I ever leave this house, I'm leaving with you. My head spun. Those words, I like you. My eyes widened. My heart slammed against my ribs. Carl leaned in, his voice dropping even lower. Your body, your beauty, the way you move. His eyes flicked over me. You're shy, but so damn sweet. My hands clenched into fists on my lap, like that could somehow keep me grounded. But my entire body felt like it was on fire. Carl smiled, that usual confident, almost careless smile. But this time it was different. His hands slid around the back of my neck, pulling me in. Every thought disappeared. Finally, his breath ghosted over my lips. And then he kissed me. The moment Carl's lips met mine, something inside me shattered. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it might burst out of my chest. Years of tension, the stolen glances, the things unsaid, the feelings buried, all of it broke free. At first the kiss was hesitant, like he was tasting me, feeling me. But then it deepened, intensified. Carl's hand slid from my neck down to my back. The second his fingertips touched my skin, a shiver ran through me. His touch was warm, possessive, completely overwhelming. He pulled me closer. When his chest pressed against mine, I felt my whole body react. I could smell him, clean, masculine, dizzying, and I knew this was just the beginning. Without even realizing it, I placed my hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing just as fast as mine. It made everything real. We were completely lost in that charged silence, the air between us thick with something electric. Then Carl slowly pulled back. My vision was hazy. My lips still tingled from his touch. He just stared at me, long and hard, like he was trying to burn this moment into his memory. And then his voice came, deep, low, almost a whisper. You know, Arya, I've always thought about this. I held my breath. You really thought I never noticed you, didn't you? I swallowed hard. Yes. Carl tilted his head slightly, his fingers reaching up to gently cup my chin. But you were wrong. My whole world tilted. I noticed you. I always have. His hand moved to my hair, his thumb tracing softly behind my ear. Every move you made, every glance, every little smile you thought went unnoticed. I saw it all. I took a deep breath. My body was betraying me. And you know what? His voice was softer now, rough around the edges. I can't even count how many times. I stopped myself. That was it. My fingers moved on their own, trailing from his chest up to his neck. I felt his muscles tense under my touch. My breath hitched. This was a game, but neither of us wanted to win. Carl leaned in again, his lips just barely brushing against mine. But this time, it was different. Hungrier, more certain. One of my hands tangled in his hair, fingers gripping as I pulled him in. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. Some lines, once crossed, can never be undone. Everything was going so well. We went to Carl's room, holding hands romantically. And it seemed like a good opportunity for Carl to sleep alone in a big double bed. We got rid of our clothes. We were next to each other, and I was looking at our things on the floor. It was like the calm before the storm. We were both so excited. Carl sat up for a moment and looked into my eyes. His hands were moving slowly and decisively. Then, as the dim light of the street lamp shone into the room, mixed with the dim light of the night lamp, everything went well. I felt something inside me. I felt that I belonged to Carl. It was the first time it had ever happened, to belong to someone. It made me excited and happy, and Carl went on. Everything was going slowly, with very smart and very romantic conversations. I soon closed my eyes and started to squeeze Carl's back tightly with my hands. I didn't care about anything anymore. When Carl said, "From now on I will always be with you," my body reacted. I shuddered and contracted. I felt an incredible relief and happiness. I was silent, breathless, panting, just begging Carl to thank me over and over again. At that moment, my eyes were closed and my hands were holding the sheets tightly. I felt like I was going to faint again. What was going on? How could Carl be so wonderful, so handsome, and so romantic? I looked into Carl's eyes and just said, "Please, please don't hold back." Soon Carl made a loud noise. Then he let go. Feeling all of Carl's warmth inside me was priceless. The person I had loved for 2 years was finally here, with me, and he loved me just as much. That night, everything happened exactly as it was meant to. We fell asleep together. When I opened my eyes in the morning, soft light filled the room. The bed was empty. I lay there for a few seconds, listening. Then, from the slightly open door, I heard the faint sound of running water. Carl was in the shower. I smiled, pulling on his shirt. I made my way downstairs to the kitchen. The house was still wrapped in silence, but my mind was replaying everything. From last night, it was real. All of it. Leaning against the counter, I started preparing breakfast. As I moved around the kitchen, footsteps approached. Excitement curled in my stomach. Carl walked in, running his fingers through his damp hair. His black t-shirt clung slightly to his body, and the fresh scent of soap mixed with his own. Warm, clean, intoxicating. His eyes locked onto mine. Last night, he started, then paused, smiling. Was incredible. I looked away, but I couldn't hide my smile. Yeah, I whispered. It really was. Carl took a step closer. Arya, One hand rested on the table, the other found my waist. We can't just leave this house right away. But I want to take you away from here. I swallowed hard. I hadn't even realized how long I had dreamed of that. Not an escape, just the beginning of something real. First, let's not rush, he continued. Let's just take our time. Just us. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze. He was so close. Our parents will be back tonight, he said. Just casually mention that you made plans for tomorrow night. I want to take you somewhere. My eyes widened. Where? Carl leaned in slightly, his breath brushing against my lips. It's a surprise. He started to pull back, but then he hesitated. His eyes studied my face, but first, I gripped the edge of the counter, bracing myself. Carl was too close, too much. He tilted his head slightly, watching my reaction. My whole body reacted before I could even think. His voice dropped to a whisper. Before everyone gets back one more time. The warmth of his breath sent fire racing through me. I closed my eyes and Carl kept pulling me in. This story isn't over. There's more. And this time things are going further than ever before. Stay tuned. If you made it this far, I know this story hit you deep. There's so much more to share and you don't want to miss any of it. So hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below.